I saw them poison the drink. 6 trembling words from a 5-year-old that would rip apart a billion-dollar empire and expose a family's darkest betrayal. While her father scrubbed floors 42 stories below, little Jenna Cole wandered into an executive office and witnessed the unthinkable. Trusted hands slipping poison into champagne, cold smiles masking murder, and a CEO minutes away from drinking her own death. But when a child's desperate warning collides with corporate power and polished lies, who do you believe? The innocent eyes of a janitor's daughter, or the people who raised you? Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Don't drink that! The words exploded from Jenna's lungs as she burst through the glass office doors, her small feet nearly tripping over themselves. Her ginger curls flew wild around her face, and her green eyes were wide with terror. 3 heads snapped toward her. The blonde woman in the sharp red suit froze, crystal champagne glass inches from her perfectly painted lips. Beside her, a dark-haired woman in navy blue went rigid. An older man in an expensive gray suit straightened in his leather chair. "There's bad stuff in it," Jenna pointed at the glass with a trembling finger. "I saw her put powder in it when you were in the bathroom. White powder from a plastic thing." The blonde woman, Kimberly Pierce, CEO of Pierce Industries, slowly lowered her glass. Confusion flickered across her face, followed by a patronizing smile. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" "Jenna Cole." Her voice was barely a whisper now, suddenly aware of how big this office was, how important these people must be. "And what are you doing up here, Jenna?" "My daddy works here. He cleans the floors. I got bored and I shouldn't have left the room, but I—" The dark-haired woman laughed warmly, moving closer to Kimberly's side. She wore her hair in a sleek bob and had the kind of smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials. "Oh, Kim, isn't she adorable? Someone's been watching too many detective shows." She reached down and ruffled your hair condescendingly. "Honey, this is grown-up champagne, not a cartoon." "I'm not confused." Jenna's voice grew stronger, that stubborn determination her daddy knew well rising to the surface. "I saw you. You took something out of your pocket and dumped it in her glass and stirred it with your pen." Kimberly's smile remained patient, but distant. "Jenna, was it? I think you've mixed up reality with your imagination. It happens when children watch too much TV." "But I saw—" "Security." Kimberly pressed a button on her desk phone, her tone still kind, but firm. "Please send someone to escort a lost child back to her parent, and find Tyler Cole for maintenance." "No!" Jenna stomped her foot, tears of frustration building. "You have to believe me. She put something bad in your drink." The older man stood slowly, his face the picture of grandfatherly concern. "Kim, darling, the poor child is clearly overwhelmed. This office, the height, it's too much stimulation for someone her age." "You are right, Uncle John," Kimberly said, setting the glass on her desk for the moment. "Let's just wait for her father." Jenna's heart hammered against her ribs. The pretty lady was going to get hurt. She knew it, the way she knew when Daddy was sad even when he smiled, the way she knew when someone needed a hug. This was wrong, dangerous, evil, but nobody was listening. Tyler Cole burst through the office doors 3 minutes later, his face flushed from running up 12 flights of stairs. The elevator had been too slow. His maintenance uniform was still damp from mopping the lobby, and sweat beaded on his forehead. "Miss Pierce, I'm so sorry," the words tumbled out breathlessly. "Jenna was supposed to stay in the supply room. I don't know how she—" "Daddy!" Jenna ran to him, but didn't hide behind his legs like he expected. Instead, she grabbed his rough, calloused hand and pulled him forward with surprising strength. "Daddy, tell them I don't lie. The lady with the dark hair put powder in Miss Pierce's drink when she went to the bathroom." Tyler looked down at his daughter. He'd raised her alone for 5 years. 5 years since that October night when he'd come home to find his wife gone and a 6-month-old baby crying in her crib. 5 years of working night shifts, changing diapers with hands that fixed pipes and scrubbed toilets, learning to braid hair through YouTube videos at 3 in the morning. In those 5 years, Jenna had never lied to him. Not once.
When she said the neighbor's son was stealing from Mr. Patricia's store, Tyler had confronted the boy's parents. They'd been angry until the security footage proved Jenna right. When she said her preschool teacher was mean to the kids who didn't speak English well, Tyler had investigated. 3 parents later filed complaints. Jenna was removed from that class. His daughter didn't lie, she didn't exaggerate, and right now she was terrified. "Miss Pierce," Tyler said carefully, his voice steadier than he felt. "My daughter, she doesn't make things up. If she says she saw something, Mr. Cole—" Kimberly's voice had cooled considerably. Her blue eyes, which moments ago had held patience, now held irritation. "Your daughter is clearly confused. Emily has been with me for 4 years. She held me when my parents died in an avalanche. She's worked 60-hour weeks by my side through hostile takeovers and market crashes. And John, Uncle John is the only family I have left. He's been my father's brother, my advisor, my anchor since I inherited this company. I trust them with my life." "But she saw what she thinks she saw," Kimberly corrected sharply. "Now please, take your daughter back to wherever she was supposed to be. We have an important press conference in an hour to announce our $5 billion partnership with the Yamamoto Group. This is the biggest deal in Pierce Industries history, and I won't have it derailed by a child's overactive imagination."
Tyler started to lift Jenna, but she wriggled free with surprising strength. "No, Daddy, she's going to get hurt. Even if she doesn't drink it now, they'll try again. The mean lady and the old man were whispering and pointing at the camera and laughing in a scary way." Something in Jenna's voice, that raw desperation, made Tyler pause. He'd heard that tone only once before, when she'd woken from a nightmare about her mother never coming back. It was the sound of a child who knew something terrible was about to happen and felt powerless to stop it. Tyler squared his shoulders. "Miss Pierce, what if we checked the security footage, just to put this to rest?" Emily's hand twitched slightly, so subtle Tyler almost missed it. "That's ridiculous. We're not going to waste time." "Actually," Kimberly interrupted, her CEO voice returning, "that's not a bad idea. It'll take 2 minutes, and then we can all move on." She looked at Jenna with something between pity and irritation. "Would that make you feel better, sweetheart, if I show you that nothing happened?" Jenna nodded vigorously, relief flooding her small face. Kimberly pulled up the security system on her computer, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. She scrolled to the timestamp, her expression confident. The screen showed nothing but static. Her fingers froze on the mouse. "That's odd," she murmured, a tiny furrow appearing between her perfectly shaped eyebrows. "The system's been glitching all morning." Emily's response came too quickly, too smoothly. "I mentioned it to IT earlier. Nothing to worry about." Kimberly's head turned slowly toward her assistant. "You didn't mention it to me." "I didn't want to bother you before the press conference," Emily explained, her smile never wavering. "It's probably just a server issue. You know how technology can be." "Convenient." Tyler's voice was quiet but sharp. "Convenient that it glitched at exactly the time my daughter says she saw something." "Are you implying something?" John Stanford's voice had lost every trace of grandfatherly warmth. His eyes had gone cold, hard. "Because if you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, you're looking at a lawsuit for slander." "I'm stating a fact," Tyler replied, surprised by his own boldness. The protective instinct that had carried him through 5 years of single parenthood surged through his veins. "The footage is conveniently gone from the exact moment my daughter claims to have witnessed something." Emily laughed, light, dismissive, perfectly calibrated. "Kim, this is absurd. Are we really going to entertain conspiracy theories from a janitor and his child?" The words hit Tyler like a slap, but he didn't flinch. He'd spent 3 years being invisible in this building, fading into the background while executives talked over him and through him. But not today. Not when his daughter's instincts were screaming danger. "Miss Pierce," Tyler said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "one way to prove my daughter wrong. Miss Forrest, Mr. Stanford, drink from the glass." The office fell into a silence so complete Tyler could hear his own heartbeat. John's face darkened to a dangerous shade of purple.
How dare you? A nobody janitor telling us what to do. Kim, fire this man immediately. Have him escorted from the building. If there's nothing in it, Tyler continued, his voice somehow growing calmer as John's rose, then drinking it should be no problem. Just one sip to prove a 5-year-old wrong. This is harassment, Emily's voice pitch higher, that smooth control cracking at the edges. Kim, are you going to let us treat us like criminals after everything we've been through together?
But Kimberly had gone very still. She was brilliant, had built her empire on reading people, on sensing when numbers didn't add up, when contracts hid poison pills in the fine print, and something in Emily's tone, in John's explosive anger, sent ice water trickling down her spine. "It's just champagne," she said quietly, her blue eyes fixed on Emily's face. "So drink it." "I won't be subjected to this humiliation," Emily protested, but her hands were shaking now. "Emily," Kimberly's voice was soft, but carried the weight of steel. "You've been my sister in everything but blood. You held me through the worst night of my life when I got the call about my parents. You've sacrificed relationships, sleep, everything for this company. So please, for me, just take one sip and prove this little girl wrong." By now, the commotion had drawn other employees. The glass office walls meant everyone on the 42nd floor could see the standoff. Marketing executives, accountants, junior analysts, they pressed closer, whispering, phones out, some already recording. Emily looked at the growing crowd, at John, whose jaw was clenched so tight a muscle jumped in his cheek, at Kimberly, whose eyes held the first real shadows of doubt. "This is insane," Emily whispered, but her professional mask was cracking like glass under pressure. "Kim, you can't seriously—" "One sip, Emily." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the murmurs like a blade. "One sip, and this all goes away. I'm not drinking from a glass that's been sitting out. That's unsanitary." She forced a laugh that sounded brittle, wrong. "Kim, this is beneath us. Are we really going to entertain a child's fantasy?" "Then I'll drink it," John suddenly announced, reaching for the glass with a hand that trembled slightly. But Tyler saw it, that tiny tremor, that split-second hesitation. "Wait," Tyler said firmly. "Miss Forrest should drink it. She's the one my daughter saw."
This is harassment. Emily's voice grew shrill, her composure shattering. "Kim, I've been with you through everything. I held you when your parents died. I've worked 60-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks for you. I've sacrificed my own life, my own relationships, everything for this company, for you. And now you're humiliating me because some janitor's kid has an overactive imagination?" Real tears streamed down Emily's face now, and Kimberly wavered. Guilt crashed over her in waves. This was Emily, her rock, her sister, the person who'd sat with her for 3 days of funeral arrangements when Kimberly couldn't even speak. Emily, who knew her coffee order, her moods, her fears. Emily, who'd never asked for anything in return. "Of course not," Kimberly said, reaching for her friend. "Emily, No," Emily jerked back, her tears flowing faster. "If you don't trust me, after everything we've been through, after all I've sacrificed, then maybe I should resign. Is that what you want? After 4 years of loyalty, of sisterhood, you're choosing them over me?" John seized the moment, standing with righteous indignation. "This is exactly what happens when we let the help bring their children to work. Kim, your parents would have never tolerated this circus. They built this company on professionalism, on standards. And now you're tearing apart your own family because a 5-year-old tells a story?" More employees had gathered now, drawn by the raised voices. Someone whispered, "What's happening?" Another responded, "The janitor's kid says someone poisoned Miss Pierce's drink." The whispers grew louder, spreading like wildfire through the crowd. "Why won't the assistant just drink it? Something's not right. Did you see how she reacted?" Emily heard the whispers, saw the suspicion spreading across faces like a stain. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and she could feel it slipping through her fingers. "This is a witch hunt!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Then end it," Tyler said firmly, his arm around Jenna's shoulders. "One sip." "Mr. Cole, you're fired," John announced, his voice like a judge's gavel. "Get out. Now. And take your lying daughter with you." "Uncle John, wait!" Kimberly interjected, her voice uncertain, torn between guilt and growing dread. "Kim, are you really going to let a 5-year-old child destroy Emily's reputation? Your assistant, who's like a sister to you, this girl who you don't even know, making wild accusations that could ruin lives." Jenna, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. Her voice was small but clear, cutting through the adult chaos. "You pointed at the camera and made a cutting motion." She looked directly at John, demonstrating by slashing her tiny hand across her throat. "Like this. That's why it's not working, isn't it?" John's face went from red to white in an instant. "The child is obviously disturbed," he started. "Wait." Kimberly held up her hand, her CEO instincts taking over. She pulled out her phone, fingers moving swiftly. She pulled up the company's internal systems, scrolling through maintenance requests. Her face went very still. "There's a request here. This morning. Camera 42, taken offline for routine maintenance at Miss Pierce's request." She looked up slowly. "I never made that request." Her eyes found John's. "But someone, using your executive access, did, at 6:47 a.m., 2 hours before I arrived." The office fell into stunned silence.
The room grew heavier, the air thick with tension. Emily and John exchanged a quick glance, barely a second, but Tyler saw it. So did several others in the crowd. "This is ridiculous," Emily said, but her voice was cracking now, that polished professionalism crumbling. "Fine. You want me to drink it? I'll drink it." She grabbed the glass dramatically, her hand shaking. But instead of drinking, she suddenly hurled it against the wall. No. Tyler lunged forward, but too late. The crystals shattered, champagne splashing across the white wall and pristine carpet like blood at a crime scene. "There!" Emily screamed, her voice raw and broken. "Are you happy? Now no one has to drink anything." For a split second, triumph flashed across Emily's face, the evidence destroyed. But Tyler was already moving. He grabbed a stack of napkins from Kimberly's desk, dropping to his knees beside the wet carpet. "Security, I need evidence bags, now." His maintenance instincts took over, carefully pressing the napkins into the champagne-soaked carpet. "Most of the liquid is still here. Any lab can detect what was in it." Emily's triumph turned to horror. "You can't!" "Emily!" Kimberly gasped, watching her assistant's face confirm everything. "What are you doing?" "What am I doing? What are you doing?" Emily's voice had transformed from professional smoothness to something feral, desperate. "Choosing them over us. After everything. After all of it." "Us?" Kimberly's voice was barely a whisper. The crowd pressed closer, phones raised, recording every second. "Actually," Kimberly said, her CEO voice returning with icy precision, "that's exactly what we're going to do." She turned to security, who had finally pushed through the crowd. "Collect samples of the spilled champagne. Have our lab test it immediately. I want results within the hour." "This is insane." Emily was backing toward the door, her carefully constructed mask completely shattered. "I don't have to stand here and be treated like a criminal." "Then leave," Kimberly said coldly, something hard and broken entering her voice. "But if you walk out that door, Emily, don't come back." Emily froze, her hand on the door handle. John stood slowly, straightening his expensive suit. "If she goes, I go too." His voice like winter. "Uncle John?" Kimberly's voice cracked on his name, the only family she had left. The man who'd walked her down the aisle at her parents' memorial service. The advisor who'd guided her through hostile takeovers and market crashes. "You're choosing a janitor's brat over your own family?" Each word precise and cutting. "What family?"
Kimberly asked, and something in her voice made the entire room hold its breath. Emily, you're my assistant. Uncle John, you're my uncle. What am I missing? The pressure had built to a breaking point. The crowd was massive now, pressed against the glass walls. Security stood ready. The lad would have results within an hour. The walls were closing in. Emily looked at John desperately. He gave a tiny shake of his head, a warning, a command to stay silent. But it was too late. Family that you never acknowledged, Emily exploded, the words ripping from her throat. Do you know who I really am, Kim? Emily, don't. John's warning came too late. I'm his daughter, Emily pointed at John with a shaking hand. Your cousin. The embarrassment your perfect parents erased because I didn't fit the precious Pierce family image. The crowd gasped. Phones captured every second. Kimberly's face went white. That's impossible.
Think about it. Emily's laugh was broken, bitter. How did I know exactly what to say when your parents died? Your mother's favorite flowers? The layout of your childhood home? I didn't research it, Kim. I lived it. In the shadows, watching you have everything while I pretended to be nobody. Emily, shut up, John commanded, desperation cracking his voice. But years of suppressed rage poured out. No, I'm done being silent. You promised this would work. You planned this together? Kimberly's voice went hollow. The crowd held its breath, watching a family implode in real time. The compound would have just made you confused, Emily said desperately, her composure shattering. Disoriented enough for us to— Emily, John roared. To what? Kimberly stepped forward, trembling with rage. Finish the sentence. Emily's eyes went wide, realizing what she'd confessed before dozens of witnesses. To nothing. I misspoke. Stop lying. The scream tore from Kimberly's throat, 4 years of control exploding. For months, stop lying to me. John stood slowly, every trace of warmth gone. His voice turned to ice. You want truth? Fine. Your parents were sentimental fools who gave everything to a girl playing CEO, while I, who brought this company into the modern age, got table scraps. Uncle John, I'm done being Uncle John. Decades of resentment erupted. This company should have been mine from the start. But I laid low, didn't I? Smiled through family dinners while your grandfather handed everything to your father. Then I stayed, helped expand what should have been my inheritance. Every strategic move, every acquisition, every pivot that saved us during the recession, that was me. And what did I get? A VP title and a pat on the head while you inherited everything.
Security moved forward. John raised a hand, his eyes gleaming with dark satisfaction. That compound would have had you signing documents within an hour. Confused, compliant, barely aware. Power of attorney, asset transfers, everything your father denied me, finally mine. Ours, Emily corrected desperately. And then, Kimberly's voice went dead. After you stole everything? John's smile was chilling. Accidents happen. Allergic reactions, especially to someone compromised by hallucinogenics. It would have looked like suicide. Poor Kimberly, cracking under pressure. Someone in the crowd gasped. Another frantically dialed 911. My parents' death, Kimberly's voice barely carried. The avalanche? Did you— That was genuine bad luck, John said casually, making it worse. But sometimes the universe does us favors. All these years, Emily's voice pitched high, desperate. I called you Miss Pierce, my own cousin. You had everything, the office, the life, the name, never knowing your father became heir because our grandfather threw mine away like trash. $50,000, that's what they paid my mother to disappear, to keep me invisible, to keep the Pierce name clean. They erased my father and made yours the golden child. So you tried to murder me? Kimberly's voice splintered. From money? It wasn't murder, it was justice, Emily screamed. Taking back what was stolen. You would have killed me over jealousy? I hate you. Emily's mask shattered completely. Every day watching you succeed, getting praise, love, respect. When I was better, smarter, more dedicated, I deserved it. Silence.
Then Jenna's small voice cut through like a bell. No, you didn't. Everyone turned to the little girl holding her father's hand. My daddy says people who hurt others don't deserve anything good, Jenna said clearly. You're just mean, and mean people always lose. Emily lunged forward with a strangled cry. Tyler swept Jenna back as security tackled Emily to the ground. She fought and screamed, her professional facade destroyed forever. John didn't resist when officers approached. He straightened his cuffs with cold precision. 40 years of service, and this is how it ends. His eyes held nothing but contempt. Your father would be ashamed of how weak you've become. No, Kimberly said quietly, tears streaming. He'd be ashamed of you, his brother, who he trusted, who he loved. As the police dragged them away, Emily still fighting and screaming incoherently, John walking with cold, rigid dignity, the office erupted into chaos. People were crying, shouting, calling news outlets. The biggest corporate scandal in years had just unfolded before their eyes, captured on dozens of phones. But in the center of the chaos, Kimberly stood frozen. Her entire world had shattered. The family she'd trusted, the sister she'd chosen, the uncle who'd raised her after her parents died, all lies, all betrayal, all poison dressed up as love. Her legs gave out. Tyler caught her before she hit the ground. His arms, surprisingly strong for someone who'd spent years trying to remain invisible, wrapped around her as she collapsed. I've got you, he said quietly, his voice steady as an anchor in the storm. They were my family, Kimberly sobbed against his shoulder, her designer suit crumpling, her carefully styled blonde hair falling loose. They were all I had left in this world. The remaining employees stood frozen, watching their untouchable CEO shatter like glass. Some pulled out phones, others whispered, but Tyler's fierce gaze stopped them cold. Give her space, he commanded, with an authority that made executives twice his pay grade move. Now! Something in his voice, protective, almost dangerous, made the crowd scatter. Within moments, the floor was empty except for 3 people. Kimberly's legs had given out completely. Tyler lowered her gently to the carpet, staying close, a shield between her and the world. Her sobs echoed through the empty office. Raw, primal, years of loneliness and betrayal pouring out onto the champagne-stained floor. A small hand touched her face. Jenna had knelt beside her, those wise green eyes full of understanding. She didn't speak at first, just gently wiped Kimberly's tears with her little hands. The gesture, so tender it made Kimberly cry harder. It's okay to be sad, Jenna whispered, settling cross-legged beside the broken woman. Daddy cried for lots of nights after Mommy left us. I was just a baby, but he told me about it later. He said his heart felt broken. Kimberly looked at the child through her tears. But you know what? Jenna continued with the absolute certainty only children possess. The hurt gets smaller. Not gone, but smaller. Like when you get a really big owie and it hurts so bad, you think you'll die. But then one day, it's just a little scar that reminds you how brave you were. Kimberly pulled the little girl into her arms, this child who'd saved her life and was now trying to save her heart. Tyler knelt beside them, one hand on his daughter's back, the other hesitantly touching Kimberly's shoulder. You're not alone, he said simply. Not anymore. There, on the 42nd floor of her gleaming empire, surrounded by broken glass and bitter betrayal, Kimberly Pierce found herself held by 2 people who owed her nothing but gave her everything. A janitor with calloused hands and his daughter with copper curls and a heart bigger than the building they stood in. The investigation moved swiftly. The lab results came back within 2 hours.
The champagne contained a powerful hallucinogenic compound mixed with sedatives. In Emily's office, investigators found forged documents ready to be filed, offshore accounts established in the Cayman Islands, even a suicide note drafted in Kimberly's handwriting through careful forgery. John Stanford and Emily Forrest were arrested on charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. The trial would become one of the most publicized in corporate history. The weeks after the arrests blurred together. Depositions, police statements, board meetings where lawyers spoke in careful circles. The media circus was relentless, every news outlet dissecting the Pierce family betrayal. But through it all, one image haunted Kimberly. Tyler's calloused hands catching her as she fell. The quiet strength in his voice saying, "I've got you." And Jenna, 5 years old, copper curls and green eyes, wiping away a CEO's tears with the tenderness of someone who understood broken things. They owed her nothing. They were invisible to her world, or had been, until the day one of them saved her life.
3 weeks after the incident, Kimberly stood alone in her office at 2 in the morning. The city glittered below. 42 stories of glass and steel separating her from the ground. She'd always loved this view. It made her feel powerful, untouchable. Now it just felt lonely. Her phone buzzed. A photo from Tyler. Jenna asleep with a book on her chest, mid-sentence. The caption read, "She wanted to finish the chapter. Lost the battle on page 7. Kimberly smiled despite herself, then caught her reflection in the dark window. When had she last smiled at something that simple? When had she last noticed the people who kept her empire running while she floated 42 floors above them? She'd walked past Tyler for 3 years. Never learned his name, never wondered about the man who made sure her office gleamed, who fixed broken things in the middle of the night, who worked while she slept. And his daughter, brave, brilliant Jenna, had seen what Kimberly's own family couldn't, had valued her life when blood had plotted her death. The realization hit like cold water. Her entire understanding of worth had been upside down. The next morning, Kimberly called an emergency board meeting. "I'm restructuring compensation," she announced, sliding folders across the mahogany table. "Support staff wages increase 40%, effective immediately. Facilities, maintenance, janitorial, security, everyone." The CFO blanched. "Miss Pierce, that's $15 million annually." "I don't care." Her voice was steel. "This company exists because of combined effort. Not just executives in corner offices, but people who show up at midnight to fix broken pipes. People who clean so we can work in dignity. People we've made invisible." "This is emotional decision-making," the CFO protested. The board will approve it, or I'll find a board that understands what actually builds empires. A janitor's 5-year-old daughter saved my life because she was raised with values my own family lacked. If that doesn't make you rethink how we measure worth, then you're in the wrong company." The motion passed.
But money wasn't enough. Kimberly started Coffee with Kimberly, an hour weekly where she sat with different departments. She learned that Marcus in security had 3 kids and coached Little League, that Sophia in janitorial was putting herself through nursing school, that the IT team she'd never met by name had collectively saved the company from 6 cyber attacks she'd never even known about. She'd been blind, comfortable in her glass tower, surrounded by people who smiled and agreed and, she now understood, sometimes plotted. Real loyalty didn't come from family dinners and shared last names. It came from showing up, seeing people, valuing them. One evening, she found herself outside the maintenance office. Through the window, she could see Tyler inventorying supplies, his uniform still damp from work. He looked tired but content, humming something off-key. She knocked softly. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Miss Pierce." "Kimberly," she corrected. "Please." "Kimberly." He tried out her name carefully. "Is something broken? I can—" "No." She hesitated, suddenly uncertain. This woman who commanded boardrooms felt awkward in a maintenance closet. "I wanted to thank you, properly, and I set up a college fund for Jenna." Tyler's expression went carefully blank. That's generous, but it's not charity. The words came faster now. Your daughter saved my life, Tyler. The least I can do is make sure she has every opportunity to become whoever she's meant to be. He studied her, really looked, like he was trying to figure out a complicated problem. Finally, he nodded. She'd like that. Thank you. Kimberly turned to leave, then stopped. Would it be okay if I visited sometime? To see Jenna? I'd like to bring her some books. She mentioned loving stories about brave girls. Tyler's expression softened. She'd love that.
The first visit was awkward. Kimberly showed up at their apartment in a designer suit, clutching a bag of children's books like armor. The space was small, worn, but spotlessly clean. Everything Tyler owned put into making a home for his daughter. Jenna answered the door and squealed, launching herself at Kimberly's legs. "Miss Kim, you came!" The formality melted. They sat on the worn carpet, Jenna chattering about school and friends and a boy named Marcus who ate glue. Kimberly found herself laughing, really laughing for the first time in months. Tyler made spaghetti. It was simple, nothing like the five-star restaurants Kimberly frequented, but it tasted better somehow. Maybe because Jenna insisted on helping, getting sauce everywhere. Maybe because Tyler told terrible dad jokes that made his daughter groan. Maybe because for the first time in forever, Kimberly felt like a person instead of a position. "Stay for a movie?" Jenna asked, those green eyes hopeful. Kimberly glanced at Tyler. He shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. "If you want." She did. They watched an animated film about friendship. Jenna fell asleep between them, her head on Kimberly's lap, feet on her father's. Neither adult moved, afraid to wake her. "She doesn't do this with strangers," Tyler said quietly. "You must feel safe to her." "She saved my life," Kimberly whispered. "I think she feels safe to me too." The visits became routine, once a week, then twice. Kimberly brought books and art supplies. Tyler made dinner, nothing fancy, but always made with care. Jenna bridged the gap between them with her 5-year-old wisdom, asking Kimberly about her day at work, telling Tyler that Miss Kim seemed sad sometimes. "She's lonely," Jenna announced one night after Kimberly left, "like you were before I made you better."
Tyler tucked his daughter in, smoothing her wild curls. "I think you might be right. Miss Kim needs us to make her better too," Jenna declared with absolute certainty. "She smiles real smiles here, not the work ones." Tyler had noticed the way Kimberly's shoulders relaxed when she stepped through their door, how she laughed at his terrible jokes, the softness in her eyes when she looked at Jenna, and sometimes, when she thought he wasn't watching, at him. 3 months in, Kimberly stayed for Saturday breakfast. Tyler was making pancakes, while Jenna commandeered the syrup bottle like a weapon. "You're gonna flood the kitchen," he warned. "Pancakes need oceans of syrup, Daddy. Everyone knows that." Kimberly laughed, and Tyler realized he'd been listening for that sound, that genuine, unguarded joy she only showed here in his tiny kitchen with flour on her designer jeans. She caught him staring. "What?" "Nothing." He turned back to the stove, but his ears burned. "I've negotiated with vendors who've tried to overcharge the company. I'm pretty sure I can handle syrup negotiations." "I've negotiated billion-dollar deals," Kimberly countered, watching Jenna create abstract art with breakfast. "But I've never been this happy." The kitchen went quiet. Tyler turned, spatula in hand. "Happiness isn't in boardrooms," he said softly, then blushed at his boldness. She looked at him, really looked at him. Not the janitor, not the employee, but Tyler Cole, the man who'd rebuilt his life with bare hands and raised an extraordinary daughter, the man who made her laugh, who never wanted anything from her except to see her smile. "No," she agreed, her voice barely audible. "It's not." The shift happened slowly, carefully. Two people who'd been burned learning to trust again. Tyler had been abandoned by Jenna's mother, left with a baby and no explanation. Kimberly had been betrayed by the only family she had. Both carried scars. Both moved cautiously. But Jenna was their bridge. She'd hold Kimberly's hand during movies, demand her father read bedtime stories, insist they all go to the park together. Slowly, the three of them became something that felt dangerously like family. The first time Tyler touched Kimberly's hand, just brushed his fingers against hers while reaching for popcorn, electricity shot through both of them. They froze, eyes meeting, Jenna oblivious between them, singing along to the movie. Neither pulled away. Weeks later, Kimberly arrived looking exhausted. A hostile takeover attempt had consumed her week. She collapsed on Tyler's couch, and without thinking, he sat beside her, letting her lean into his shoulder. "I'm tired. So tired of fighting." "Then rest." His arm came around her shoulders, tentative, offering comfort. "You're safe here." She turned her face into his chest and cried. Not the broken sobs from the office, but quiet tears of exhaustion and relief. Tyler held her, his calloused hand gentle in her hair, and realized he was falling for this woman, this brilliant, wounded person who'd somehow found her way into his heart.
12 months after that terrible day, Tyler built up his courage. They were in his kitchen, their space now. Jenna was asleep. Kimberly was helping him wash dishes, something that still made him smile. A billionaire CEO with soap bubbles on her hands. "Kimberly," he started, then lost his nerve. She looked at him, those blue eyes patient, waiting. This is probably inappropriate. You're you, and I'm Kimberly." She set down the dish. "What is it?" "I think I'm falling in love with you." The words rushed out. "I know that's insane. We're from different worlds. You run empires and I fix toilets. But when you're here, you're just you. And I love who you are when you're not being CEO. I love how you read to Jenna in funny voices, how you laugh at my terrible jokes, how you look in my kitchen like you've always belonged here." He braced for rejection, for her to remember who they were, what separated them. Instead, she kissed him. Soft, tentative, her hand cupping his jaw. When she pulled back, tears shone in her eyes. "I've been waiting for you to say that, because I love you too, and I love Jenna, and I love this life we're building that has nothing to do with money or power, and everything to do with being seen, being valued, being home." They kissed again, deeper this time, years of loneliness melting between them.
Finally! Jenna's voice made them jump apart. She stood in her doorway, grinning triumphantly. "I told Madison at school you were going to be my mommy, and she didn't believe me." "Jenna!" Tyler's face burned. "You're supposed to be asleep. How could I sleep when you two took forever?" She ran over, wrapping her arms around both their legs. "Can I call you Mommy now?" Kimberly knelt down, eye level with this little girl who'd saved her life and healed her heart. "How about we start with Mom Kim and see where it goes?" "Deal!" She sealed it with a hug that nearly knocked Kimberly over. The wedding came 6 months later. Small, intimate, nothing like the grand Pierce affairs. Jenna was flower girl, distributing petals with fierce concentration. Tyler's toast was, "My daughter saw danger where others saw nothing. She saw loneliness where others saw success. She saw family where others sought impossibility." To Jenna, who teaches me daily that courage isn't being fearless, it's doing what's right even when you're trembling. Kimberly's voice was thick with emotion. "I built walls of glass and steel thinking they made me strong. But real strength came from a 5-year-old who refused to stay silent and a man who showed me worth isn't measured in boardrooms. Tyler and Jenna didn't just save my life, they gave me one worth living." 3 years after that terrible day, Pierce Industries became the first Fortune 500 company, requiring executives to spend 1 day monthly working alongside support staff. The Jenna Initiative revolutionized corporate culture across industries. Jenna, now 8, had a baby brother, Oliver, with Tyler's stubborn chin and Kimberly's strategic mind. One evening, the family gathered in their home, not Kimberly's penthouse, but a space blending Tyler's warmth with her elegance.
Tell me the poison story, Jenna asked, curled.
Because it reminds me, being small doesn't mean being powerless, Jenna said, stroking baby Oliver's hair, and that speaking up matters, even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared, Kimberly added, kissing her daughter's head. Tyler ran facilities management now, keeping his old uniform as a reminder. Kimberly still led Pierce Industries, but knew every employee's name. Real power wasn't corner offices. It was connection, seeing people, listening to voices others ignored. The story of the janitor's daughter who saved the CEO became legend at Pierce Industries. It proved heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they have pigtails and coloring books, calloused hands and maintenance uniforms, or run billion-dollar companies but need saving just as much as anyone. A family forged not by blood, but by courage, connection, and a little girl brave enough to shout truth when everyone chose comfortable lies. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please don't let it end here. Let it remind you, kindness still matters, compassion still changes lives, and hope is never wasted. Subscribe and be part of our Everbells Stories family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moment moved you, share it, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.